I do not believe that on Wednesday, if and when Syracuse releases a depth chart, that we're going to know definitively who the starting quarterback actually is. I imagine when that depth chart is released, if it is tomorrow, it's going to have one name on top of the other. So maybe it says Steve Angeli or Rickie Collins. And the point being is that there's going to be that quote unquote or designation to indicate that a decision has not yet been made as far as the quarterback. Fran Brown also mentioned that it is 51-49 right now, and he has always maintained that leadership is what he values the most with his quarterback. So that's the latest with Syracuse's quarterback situation, which we're going to continue to monitor throughout fall camp. Running back, as expected, you got Yasin, Willis, and Will Nixon. They are expected to be the two-headed monster in Syracuse's backfield. Hopefully, right? You hope that it's a two-headed monster right there. I imagine that we're also going to get that quote-unquote or designation. Beyond that, it's like we predicted. Running back 3 is up for grabs for Syracuse football. And it's also between some of the guys that we were predicting would compete for RB3. You got 2 redshirt freshmen, Malachi James and Jaden Hart. And another one who's actually competing for it is a walk-on in Tyler Chandler. So shout out to all the walk-ons out there. Walk-ons can also make teams. It can happen, right? So that's impressive. Wide receiver, again, nothing really all that surprising. Daryl Gill is expected to be the wide receiver 1. For those that don't know, he was Syracuse's 5th option in the offense last year, but he still carved out a very nice season. He had a great jump from the year prior, over 500 yards. He led the ACC in yards per catch. Myself and many of you are expecting big things from Daryl Gill. He is expected to be the wide receiver 1 on the depth chart. But the staff is still trying to figure out where they're going to use Jonte Cook. Where are they going to put Jonte Cook? There's no question that he is one of the 2 best wide receivers on Syracuse football. But is he going to be lined up in the slot as the direct replacement to Trevor Pena? Or is he going to be on the opposite side, on the outside, with Daryl Gill? Which one is it going to be? And I've maintained this ever since Syracuse was rumored to be getting Jonte Cook, that an outside wide receiver is more valuable than a slot receiver. It's harder to play the outside than it is to play the slot. Jonte Cook is someone that can do both. That is what the scouting reports out there say about him. So ideally, you would want him to be an outside wide receiver. Having said that, if Syracuse feels it's best to put him in the slot because they don't know who is going to be the slot receiver if it's not Jonte Cook, then perhaps they go that route, which leaves us to this. There is still a competition outside of Jonte Cook for that other wide receiver spot. You can call it wide receiver 3. You can call it number 2 outside wide receiver. The reality is there is a competition between Justice Ross Simmons, Umari Hatcher, Emmanuel Ross, and Jalen Hornsby. We're also going to talk about Darius Johnson later on in the podcast when we go over some of the injuries in fall camp. But again, nothing all that surprising with the Syracuse wide receiver room. Tight end, as Fran Brown said at ACC Media Day, Dan Villari is going to be given that title as the starting tight end. Former 4-star Jamie Tremble, I imagine, is going to be below him on the depth chart, but he's also currently dealing with some sort of injury. We'll talk about that later on in the show. The third tight end is, like we predicted, David Clement, who we're all hoping can take a big leap this upcoming season. Offensive line. So we've touched on pretty much every position group except for the offensive line here on the show so far. It remains a mystery. We don't necessarily know who definitively is going to start. There are 10 offensive linemen reportedly that have gotten reps with the starters on offense. And we covered 9 of them in the offensive line preview podcast. We got 9 of the 10, but we left out one key player, and it is a true freshman in Byron Washington. So I apologize for that. Left him out of the offensive line preview podcast, but don't worry. I'll talk about him briefly now. He is a 3-star guard or tackle out of Texas. Again, a true freshman. The Syracuse website has Byron Washington listed at 6'7". That's pretty tall. 400 pounds. Talk about beef. No wonder why Byron Washington has a chance to legitimately play as a true freshman, because with him, size is not a problem. Now, what's his technique like? What's his foot speed like? Can he adjust to the college game? Those are different questions. But oftentimes, with any position in football, when you are making that significant jump, even like middle school to high school to college, college to the NFL, oftentimes the players, when they get to that next level, they have to add on more weight. In the case of Byron Washington, you can make the argument he actually probably has to lose a little bit of weight. 400 pounds is massive. But he is that 10th offensive lineman. And just a reminder, in football, only 5 offensive linemen on the field at any given time. I guess you can use different formations. So you have 6, 7 offensive linemen on the field, especially if you're down by the goal line. 5 offensive linemen in the game, and 10 of them have gotten reps as starters.